Welcome, everybody. We are back from the holiday season, ready to kick off a new year of horror. But before we do that, we are going to talk about the ups and downs of 2023. I am your host, Chris, and that is my co-host, Jordan, and welcome to the Grindhouse Syndicate End of the Year Recap episode. So, for the past few months, we have been quietly compiling our own separate top 10 lists. We have not discussed or seen our list with each other. So we have no idea what kind of shit show this is going to be. It could be wildly different or it could be exactly the same. We don't know.
I'm curious to see how this is gonna match up.
Yeah, we genuinely have the same taste in movies, but it does vary. A couple movies, maybe.
Yeah, I'm calling 8.
Calling 8.
I think 8's gonna match.
8's,
possibly 9, but 8.
The order probably won't be the same, but yeah, I can agree. There's probably going to be 8 at the least 7, and then maybe 2, maybe 3 different. But I think that's about all the difference is going to be.
Yeah, for me, my top 8 are by far the best 8 movies. There's a decent gap in between 8 and 9, and then from 9 to 10 is quite a gap. So I'm thinking 8.
Well, we got another difference too, because I didn't base my movies off ratings. I based them off of how much I liked, how much I enjoyed watching them, and you based yours off of your ratings of the movies.
A lot of times my ratings kind of project how much I like a movie. That only makes sense. There is certain cases where that's not necessarily true, like maybe a comedy, B-movie, horror movie. Obviously that's not going to get as high of a rating because it's terrible acting and there's no money put into it, but I enjoy watching it. But there's no movies like that on here, so I mean, regardless, my list would probably be pretty close to what it is anyway.
Yeah, I mean, even though we have that, I still think they're going to be really close. I have movies that I rated better, but they're maybe further down my list. Because, I mean, I think I originally kind of started building it by rating, but then I was like, well, I actually liked this movie. I enjoyed this movie more than this one. So I ended up doing it by just really how much I really liked them. Well, we have the top 10 list, but we also will have at the end of that, we'll have some honorable mentions, and then we will have the I Just Didn't Get the Hype Award, where we each will pick a movie that was really popular, but we personally just didn't get it.
Just didn't get it.
Just didn't get the hype. And then we are also going to discuss our plans for the show in 2024, because we have some cool ideas that we're going to try out in the Patreon, see how they go. We're going to kind of tell you some of our series ideas that we're going to be kind of toying around with in there.
Good stuff.
Yeah, I think it's good stuff. I'm kind of excited to do those episodes. So I think we've said it before, but we want to do it in there because some of these episodes are going to be shorter, and some of these episodes will take us multiple weeks to put together, and we don't want to disrupt our normal kind of movie of a week kind of thing. So we want to just try them out in there and see how they go.
Yeah, I'm really curious where some of these ideas I'm really excited for, so I'm really kind of curious to see how they come out.
Yeah, we have no idea how they're going to come out either. So we don't want to put them out there for we want to put them out there for the really true fans to listen to first before we put them out there for everybody. But first, if you want to stay up to date on what is going on with us or the show, talk about or submit your movie requests, or just say hey, you can always find us at one of our social media accounts. Facebook at the Grindhouse Syndicate Horror Podcast, Instagram at Grindhouse.Horror.Pod, and TikTok at the Grindhouse Horror Podcast at Grindhouse.Horror.Pod. And subscribe or follow for alerts on new episodes.
You're eventually just going to have that fully memorized.
Yeah. And if you really like the show, please give us a review. We would be eternally grateful. And speaking of reviews, we want to give a shout out to a Mr. Ted Bow. You, sir, are amazing. Not only did you give us 5 stars, but you wrote a very nice and thoughtful review. You truly made our whole week with your words, and we are very glad that you enjoy the show. So thank you for, taking time out of your day to listen to us and to write an amazing review. We really appreciate it, and we are very, very happy to have you be a part of the syndicate with us.
Shout out Ted.
Hell yeah, man. Yes, people will give us a review, but they'll click the stars or whatever. But to actually get somebody that writes out like more than one sentence is fantastic.
Yeah, I was pretty stoked when I read that. You can get 5-star reviews. That's awesome. But when somebody takes the time to actually sit down and write something like that out, definitely means a lot to us.
Yep. All right. Top 10. Let's get to it. We have flipped a coin to predetermine who is going to go first. And the winner was me, but I chose to go first. So my number 10 movie is VHS 85. And in my personal opinion, this was the return of VHS to its greatness. It's not better than the first one. I don't know if they'll ever top that one, but I think they did a really good job coming close. There was only one of these short stories that I didn't really care about, which was the earthquake one. But other than that, I really enjoyed them, and I really liked the first one with the kids in the boat, and it like loops back around. Definitely didn't see that coming. The loop back around, that was good.
Well, I feel like they from what I remember, they kind of run with that. They kind of go back to that a couple different times. That family, at least, goes into another story. I thought that was really cool. The one thing that's undoubtedly for me the best VHS that's come out in a long time. One thing I did take away from it though is it was really long for a found footage movie.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
I don't know what the runtime on it was, but it felt like 2.5 hours.
Well, I think the reason that is because they had, do you remember they had like that, they had a bunch of cut scenes in between the stories of those scientists with that like alien.
Yeah.
So those were really long, and then that ends up being like at the very end. So, and then that itself is long. But they did a really good job. Like I was happy because the last two weren't super great in my opinion. I don't even remember the last one.
Good. I wouldn't say they weren't super great. I didn't. What was it, 94 or something was the last one? I thought it was pretty rough.
Yeah, it might have. They did one, I want to think, in the 90s, and then they did one maybe also in the 80s. I can't even remember, and that's not good when I can't even remember them.
No, there was undoubtedly the last one was the 90s. I'm pretty sure it was 94.
And in this one, it dropped in October, so it was a really great timing. It was, kind of like perfect timing, Halloween type movie. So, that's my number 10. That's where I'm starting at.
All right. Well, my number 10 is a movie that we watched earlier in the year, and my terrible memory, I had to go back and refresh on it. I had a lot of movies that were kind of the same rating after I hit my number 9. So I kind of went back and forth on a couple different movies, but what I ended up settling on was Sick.
Oh.
Yeah. So, I thought that, for one, I hate that it's centered around COVID.
Really?
Yes, that's the one thing I hate about it.
Wow.
Not a fan of it. Don't need any reminders that COVID was a thing. But it really had like a mix of kind of like a Stranger's feel, like a Stranger / Scream feel, than being stalked in a house, a really nice like log mansion in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, who wouldn't want to? Was it quarantine? Called it quarantine.
Quarantine. Yeah, that is the quarantine place. That's where you want to be.
I missed out on the whole quarantine COVID thing. I was deployed at the time, and it's one reason I like Sick is because I didn't get to see that, and I think it's cool, because it still blows my mind that. What you guys were telling me, like everything was shut down and everyone was home. That just blows my mind. It's just crazy to me.
Yeah. It was definitely an experience.
Yeah, so I guess to quarantine, because it wasn't like originally supposed to be 2 weeks, but it ended up being a lot longer, right?
Oh yeah, I remember it started out as like it was just going to be a week or two, and then it ended up being just, it felt like it went on forever.
Well, that must be fantastic to be one of those people that can do that at a place like that. Like, holy
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah, that is a I didn't look up much about the set, whether they built that, or I assume they didn't build that
Probably
set. They
rented it.
shot that in an actual place. It is a beautiful, beautiful log cabin. But yeah, it had a very strangers slash Scream feel. I think the screenplay was done by Kevin Williamson, so that completely makes sense. Yeah, that's my number 10. Rolling right into number 9. So my number 9 is going to be Cobweb.
Oh,
Yeah. This is
creepy Halloween movie.
Yeah, this is I really like the story, how they kind of did the dynamic only to kind of turn a 180. They do a really, really good job of making you feel bad for this kid and hating the parents. And then they're able to switch that up immediately at one particular spot. Now, I don't want to spoil anything in the movie, but Lizzie Kaplan
Mm-hmm.
and Anthony Starr, their dynamic in this movie as the parents were, I mean, they made this movie.
They 100% made this movie.
Yes, they did, and the shout out to Woody Norman, who was actually the kid in this movie, for him to play that abused kid character, and to be able to play it that good at that young of an age. Big shout out to him, because he was very believable. You know, you feel really bad for this kid. Yeah, this is one of those movies, you know, when you get movies where you're not sure why you really like it, but there's just something about it that you can't put your thumb on, like you just like the feel of the movie.
I think that movie has such a Halloween October vibe to it.
It does, and it's just like a movie, Gretel and Hansel, that
Yeah.
that kind of really Halloween vibe that they had. I don't necessarily like that story a whole lot. Like, it's not amazing, but there's just something about that movie that makes me feel good while I'm watching it. And that's kind of how I felt with this movie.
Well, with that movie, I really think it does it does a really good job where it's one of the movies where you're trying to figure out where you stand on the plot. And the reason why the parents make the movie is because you're like, are they bad? Are they good? Are they bad? Are they good? And you're going back and forth, and then you are almost positive you have it, and then it ends up being the opposite of what you think.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's in it. I will say that it's kind of weird. I guess if you haven't seen this movie or the movie I'm about to mention, you may not get it, but it gave me a little bit of People Under the Stairs vibes.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. This is a movie. They have another dynamic too of this missing kid in this neighborhood, and I was convinced, a quarter of the way through the movie, that I knew what had happened.
Yep.
And it ends up completely being the opposite, and it all flips very quick. And I thought they did an amazing job with that.
Yeah, that's a good one. I enjoyed it. So my number 9 is a Peacock original where we see Kevin Williamson return to the slasher genre. It's sick.
Sick. Yeah.
Yeah, I personally thought it was a really cool idea to kind of do a slasher, but do it to surround it with COVID. I mean, to take something like a slasher movie where we've seen a lot of the same ideas, and to just center it around a real world event that hadn't been done with a slasher before. I think it was a really cool idea. I'm glad they kind of went for it. I could see people either hating it or loving it, one of the two. But I personally thought it was really cool. Like, normally we get, they're going camping or their car broke down in the middle of nowhere. But this is something that happened in real life that affected the whole world, and they managed to take that event and turn it into a slasher. I thought it was great. Really cool movie.
I thought the COVID thing was good for the story as far as them being out in the middle of nowhere and quarantining, and it really explaining why nobody was going to be around, and it was going to be really hard to, it really secludes them because of COVID. They're kind of secluded. I like that part of it. I just didn't like
The very
the
end?
end.
The reasoning?
The
Okay.
reasoning is what I didn't like.
Yeah, I think it's a fun movie. I think it was a different movie. I was really happy to see Kevin Williamson, who, if you don't know, wrote the Scream movies. And it was just nice to see him return because it has that little bit of that flavor that we're used to from him with those kind of slasher movies. And I was glad to see him back. So my number 8 is going to be Hell House LLC Origins, The Carmichael Manor. And I'm going to say this right off the bat. I have never been a Hell House fan. I don't dislike it, but I've also never really cared that much about it. I've seen the first one a few times. I'm pretty sure I've seen the second one once. I don't know the details of the Hell House story, but this movie, I felt like you didn't have to know the story. And they do connect it to the story, but not so much that somebody like me is lost.
That movie was, you didn't, even if you had never seen any of the other ones, that movie has some purely scary parts to it.
Yep.
So you didn't really need to know the connection stuff. And if you knew it, that made it even better. I know some of the stuff, I've seen them. So I know them. I didn't see them yesterday, so I can't, line the story out for you, scene by scene. But I did get some of the references, and it just made it better. But the movie I felt was genuinely scary.
Yeah, I'm not even a ghost movie person. Like, I watch them, but they're not my go-to. I don't really normally care about ghost movies. I'm more interested in watching them when they're found footage than just regular ghost movie. But this one was really good, and I think one of the reasons it was really good was because they had a really good reason to have the cameras rolling all the time too. That's another thing for found footage. They had multiple cameras, multiple people, and they had like a legitimate reason to be there. And I think it made this movie really good. Like, I was actually excited I remember I watched it. I come in there and told you guys, like, I got a movie you got to see. And that's really rare for me for ghost movies. So it hit my number 8 spot.
Good shit. All right, so moving on, my number 8. So I will say like 6 through 8 were all really close, but it came down to Five Nights at Freddy's. I thought
Good flick.
Thought this was a great play on our childhood fears of the creepy Chuck E. Cheese animatronics.
Oh, for sure.
I know me and you, I don't know how the rest of the world, I assume so because they made a movie like this, but was always kind of creeped out by the animatronics. Intrigued, but creeped out at the same time. I was fortunate enough to see the step-by-step of what this was based off of, the horror game, right before this came out. So I knew kind of the basis of what the story was, but I thought they did a really good job writing a movie around that. Because, obviously you have to write it into a movie for it to make sense. They did a great job with that. They did change some things in the story, but I don't think they changed anything so bad that, I wasn't a huge fan of that anyway. I didn't know about it, so it's not something that, hurt my feelings too much. The animatronics in this movie were absolutely terrifying.
They did a phenomenal job with those. Phenomenal job.
Yeah, when she's like laughing, whenever you first see them alive for the first time, and he's like standing there, like this has got to be a fucking joke. Like that scene is just terrifying. Thinking, putting yourself in that spot, I'd be horrified if I was in that situation. And I think this is a 3 movie. 3-movie deal.
Yeah, it has 3 movies.
So I'm really excited to see where this is going to go in the future as well, especially with Snaptrap, which is the main bad guy.
He's at the end, the one at the end. That's
Yeah.
who that is.
Yeah, so if you look at like a lot of the artwork and stuff, so in the original story, he gets like walled in, like underground, I think under the Freddy's, whatever the place is called.
Freddy's Pizza or something.
It's like
a knockoff of Chuck E. Cheese. Freddy's Pizzeria. I don't know.
Phase something Freddy's or
I don't know.
Anyway, he gets walled in for like 20 years. So when he comes out, like his suit's falling apart and you can see his body deteriorated under it and stuff. That's when you get the really scary and as the timeline goes on, these animatronics get older and they start looking creepier and creepier. And I'm really excited to see what they do moving forward with that.
Yeah, I thought it was definitely one of the coolest movies of the year. I very much look forward to what they got coming up. I don't know when the next one's coming out. I don't even know if they've started on it yet, but I do know that, when they signed the actors, they signed them for 3 movies. And considering how much fucking money that movie made, they're definitely going to do the next 2. I have no doubt about that.
Yeah, I thought Josh Hutcherson playing the lead, I thought he did a really good job.
He's great in everything I've seen him in.
Yeah.
He used to do a show called Future Man, and he is fucking hilarious in that show.
Yeah, I think he's really good. And then, of course, anything you have Matthew Lillard in gets bonus points just for having him in it. I thought this movie had a really dark feel, but they put these slight hints of bright colors, like these bright neon colors. And I thought it kind of reflected a creepy abandoned arcade that used to be like a bright spot full of happy kids and stuff. I thought they reflected that really well in the cinematography and the color choices of the movie.
It's really surprising to me that, this before this movie, but definitely this movie's a part of it, how this franchise was such a big hit with the generation kind of below us, because I feel like, for millennials, this is like a nostalgia thing, because we lived that when we were younger. Mm-hmm. This newer generation, probably most of them had never been in a Chuck E. Cheese. And if they had been, I'm pretty sure they had removed the animatronic bands a long time ago. But that was shit that we grew up with, and you would think it would kind of almost hit harder with us. But I do know that a lot of the popularity with that franchise is actually with the generation below us.
Yeah, I think it's because it was the horror game.
Yeah, it was a game.
It was a game. I think it was a couple different parts. But I would imagine that's why. Because right before the movie came out, I looked it up just out of curiosity. So I was like, oh man, like I think I've seen a video of them making the Snaptrap. Wicked Makers doing it. Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, that's really cool looking. And I started looking more into it, and I just kind of fell into the rabbit hole of the entire storyline. I had never heard of it. So I would imagine maybe that's why it hit harder with the younger crowd. I definitely think it brings up a nostalgia for us, because I don't think they have like the bands, the Chuck E. Cheese bands.
No, they removed
them
a while back, I remember. But
even in like Disney World, you go to Disney World and they would have like in one of the cafes in like Epcot, they had like an animatronic band in there playing, and I don't think they have those much anymore.
Chuck E. Cheese only has one, and it's at like the Chuck E. Cheese headquarters now. There's only one of them. And none of the actual restaurants have the because I guess the animatronics were really expensive to maintain. They broke down a lot. So they ended up getting rid of them. But yeah, there's just one now.
Yeah, imagine all the crumbling, falling apart, creepy animatronics that used to sit in a Chuck E. Cheese there is out there. And that's one thing I loved about this movie is, and at least in the game, as the story goes on, they get fucking scarier and scarier because they get older and older. Number 7, I did Thanksgiving.
Good one. That is probably one of the biggest movies of this year.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. It's really good new age slasher. I know a lot of people were comparing it to Scream in the sense that's like, who's the killer?
Oh, yeah.
Um,
I mean, I remember telling you, like, I think it was kind of like Scream
Thanksgiving.
during Thanksgiving
Yep.
with way gnarlier kills.
Yep. Thanksgiving Scream. And one thing I'll give this movie huge props for is we have grown up with Scream. We've had years of Scream. We've had 6 of them now. We're really good at being able to kind of get an idea of who it's going to be at the end, like who they're shining the light on, so we know it's not going to be them because it's too obvious. And even after years of growing up with those type of movies, the killer ended up surprising me.
Yeah, they did a really good job with that.
Yep, it got me. It was one of the last people that I would have expected it to be. I will say, like, one thing I didn't care for as much was I thought that the deaths in the beginning scene at the
dumpster?
the massacre.
Oh, I thought you were mentioning that dumpster.
No,
That was pretty rough.
Yeah, that one was bad.
Still not sure what happened there.
Yeah, like a fucking car hits a dumpster and it cuts it cuts this person in half somehow. And
it's like the plastic lid fell, but I'm like, that wouldn't do anything.
Yeah, when a plastic lid cuts you, and it was very, very.
She was a big lady too.
Very, really like something you would see in Thanksgiving or something. Like something that's like you would think would be in a comedy. But no, I was talking about the deaths in the store. I thought they really went
killed by
far. Yeah, they really went far-fetched with those. That's the only part I didn't like. Like a guy cuts his throat on the glass coming through the door. Another guy gets trampled by the entire door. The lady gets hit in the face with the cart and it breaks her neck and kills her.
And then rips her scalp off.
Yeah. Her hair gets caught in the wheel and it rips like a whole like quarter of her scalp off.
Very easily.
Yeah, so I didn't care for that. So it was a rough start. I was like, okay, is this going to be like a horror comedy? But after that, I thought some of the kills were brutal. Besides the dumpster, obviously. I thought some of the kills were really good. Good practical effects. Obviously a must for a good slasher. Can't have a good slasher without some practical effects. And I think it's a really great addition to a very slim list of Thanksgiving horror movies.
Oh man, there is such a small list of good Thanksgiving horror movies.
Yeah, when we covered Thanksgiving, we sat down and actually looked up Thanksgiving horror movies because we wanted to do something for Thanksgiving, obviously. Mm-hmm. And wow, I would have never guessed how short the list of horror movies for Thanksgiving is.
I know a lot of other shows covered the Hulu movie Pilgrim. That movie sucks. I don't normally want to dog movies too much, but it's so fucking boring.
It's a slow burn.
Oh, I mean, it is.
Never fully burns.
It's one of those movies where you're just like, there's so much buildup, and you know these motherfuckers are up to no good. Because I'll give you a really quick, what it's about. Basically, this family hires these what she thinks are actor pilgrims to come to her house for Thanksgiving, and I don't know, I guess to make it more realistic, or I can't remember why she hires them, but they end up showing up like a fucking week before Thanksgiving, and then they end up like staying there with them at the house, and then they're all like super mega conservative, like olden time conservative, like women can't own things, and yeah, and they're just kind of slowly working their way. Like they've got the parents fooled, but the teenagers are like, these motherfuckers are up to no good. And finally you get to the end of the movie, and yeah, they are no good. They're murdering people, but so much of the movie is like you figuring out how bad they are. And man, fuck that movie.
Yeah,
we won't be covering that. That thing is slow.
Yeah, that's kind of how we ended up landing on Thanksgiving. There was also Poultrygeist, which is
batshit crazy.
It is also batshit crazy, but it's really technically not a Thanksgiving movie. There was another really, really low budget Thanksgiving movie. But anyway, there's not a whole lot of options. Thanksgiving will obviously be one that the week of Thanksgiving I will probably watch every year. From now on, this will probably be added to that list.
Yeah, for sure. So my number 7, Saw X. I've mentioned it before. I don't really have an idea of where the fucking Saw story is right now. There are 9 other Saws, and then there's Spiral, which I guess you don't really necessarily have to count because it doesn't really have anything to do with the story, but I can't ever remember the whole thing. But this was awesome because you didn't have to know that. Like, I think everybody's seen probably Saw 1, 2, and probably 3 back when they were like, really good movies. And this was a movie that landed right in between that, and we all knew the fucking story, and it was kind of like it was a separate thing too. It was like its own story in with the old ones. They did a really great job on it. We got John Kramer and Amanda back. I think a lot of people, including myself, lost a lot of interest when Jigsaw when he died or when they killed him off or whatever. But this was a good movie. It had that old kind of like grainy, dingy Saw feel. There was some plot details I didn't like about the movie, which is why it's not like higher up on my list. But overall, I can agree it's definitely one of the best horror films of this year. So it landed at number 7 for me. And if you want to hear more of what we think about Saw, it'll be the next episode. We're going to cover Saw X. Just throwing that one out there. So I'm not going to go into a ton of what I think about Saw X because you got a whole hour and a half of it next week. So
good episode.
Yep. So my number 6, and I can't believe that I got a PG-13 movie landed on my top 10 list, but my number 6 is Five Nights at Freddy's. Like I said before, I didn't know anything about the games. Like, I'd heard of it, but I didn't know anything about it before. The games had zero influence on my opinion of the movie. I kind of went into it completely fresh. And I will say that I loved the idea behind this movie. And it was because what we were saying earlier is I remember as a kid thinking that they were cool, but also being like sketched out. It's like that, almost like that uncanny valley thing, because they would move around, but you knew like they were robots. I don't know why that just freaked me out. But them being robots, like, and big ass robots, just freaked me out as a little kid. And when I found out that they were making this movie, I was so excited because I'm like, dude, how did no one else think of this sooner?
Yeah, agreed.
Like, it's such a fucking good idea because I think everybody was creeped out by them when they were kids. Like, yeah, we liked them. We went there. That's part of the reason we went there, but you never wanted to get too close to them. And the characters were really cool. The actors did really good. And fucking Matthew Lillard has returned to greatness. Like, I am so glad that we're starting to see him in shit again because I don't know why people stopped casting him. I've loved him in everything that he's ever done, including fucking terrible 13 Ghosts.
I was about to say. He was one of the only good parts of 13
Him
Ghosts.
and the Ghost. That's it. That's the only reason I watched that movie. But
well, a good thing too is he got cast as like the main bad guy. So
yeah,
he's not just like a side character, or, main character's family member. He's one of the main people in the movie.
He's Stu Macher again. He's the bad guy. Back at it. But yeah, man, I thought it was such a fucking good idea for a horror film. The only thing I would say about that movie is I really wish it was a rated R, and I wish we could get a rated R, but I understand that a lot of the fans for that movie were not going to be able to see it as rated R, so.
Well, you know what? Fuck them. They'll grow up. They'll get old enough.
Yeah, maybe we will get a rated R one eventually, but.
I would love to see this movie with some good brutal kills and some actual goriness. Especially what they would be able to do with Snapchat. The main guy. God, what's his name? I said it earlier. Snaptrap. There we go. What they would be able to do with him as far as visually, I would love to see them make a rated R version of this going forward.
I can't believe I had so much fun watching a PG-13 horror movie. Normally they're, but this movie, this was a fun movie. That's why it landed on this list, is I had so much fun and I thought it was such a good idea. And I am really happy that they're making more. I'm excited for more.
Yeah, I think the horror for those is in the animatronics, and you don't really need rated R for that.
No,
I think for Snapchat, just gonna cut that shit the fuck out.
Snaptrap.
Snaptrap. What they could do with him, I don't know if they'll be able to do what I really hope they do with him, and it still be PG-13, with being able to see his deteriorated body through the suit and stuff. I'm not sure, but yeah, the horror is definitely in the animatronics, and they were able to pull that off as a PG-13. I would really, though, I agree, I would love to see in the next one maybe an R rating. I don't think they will. I think they'll probably keep them all PG-13, considering they started out PG-13, but I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, we'll see.
So with that we are on number 6.
Yep.
So my number 6 would be Saw X. It's almost as if we haven't talked about this movie enough recently. Yeah, I thought this was a great return to the original Saw series. John Kramer. We got John Kramer back. I thought he was great in this movie. I love that we got a story that took place during the early films of the series, but it's kind of a side storyline. I love that they put hints of Amanda's downfall in there, as well as having Detective Hoffman in at the end, because where they're at in the actual storyline, this taking place between the first and second one, they put things in there to kind of hint towards right where they're at. Thought that was really cool. Overall, the practical effects, bringing that back, getting rid of the CGI, and it being it feeling like you're watching a Saw movie. That's one thing.
Feeling like it's from, fucking 2007, 2008, whatever.
Yeah, and that's a big thing that they'd gotten away from the last couple movies.
Yeah, they look too good.
Yep, and I know with covering this movie that they went into great depths to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they really went out of their way to do everything they could to make sure everything was done with practical effects and everything felt like those original movies. And they did. I mean, the feel of the movie's great. I didn't care for the John Kramer being the good guy. I didn't even dislike that, really. I just thought they did too much.
They pushed a little. He's a little bit too good.
Yeah, they pushed that part a little bit too far. Like the guy is a serial killer. Let's not pretend that he's like an archangel or something. But I also thought it was really cool getting to see him outside of Jigsaw.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we get to see the first third of this movie is him just in his everyday life.
Just living. He's just vibing.
Or just dying is what he's doing. He finds out he's got cancer, and you really get to see the human side of him because they show how much and how desperate he really was to live. Like, he really didn't want to die. And he kind of forgets about the Saw thing, the whole Jigsaw thing for a good bit in the beginning of this movie. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. What you put it at number 6?
At number 6.
I think I put it at 7.
Yeah.
So we were pretty close.
Close. I have a feeling that coming down the line, some of these are going to be close. I know. What did you have? You had your number 6 as
My number 6 is Five
Freddy's.
Nights at
Yeah,
Freddy's.
that was number 8 for me. So moving on, my number 5 is Talk to Me. Thought Talk to Me was a great movie. It feels super A24, like when you watch it. If
It's
you
a phenomenal
had to
movie.
watch it and then make a guess, A20 of what movie company it was,
Oh,
you would totally think A24.
It has A24 written all over it, which is so weird because A24 didn't make the movie.
Yeah,
They just
they
picked
just
it.
distributed it.
Yeah, but
But up until this point, they've done distribution on all their movies. I know they're getting into starting making them now.
yeah,
But they've been extremely consistent on
Very.
the movies that they've picked because they all have that A24 feel. I thought that the story was amazingly written. I thought it was something fresh and original that we've never got. I love how the story in the story parallels drug addiction and one's downfall, yet they were able to write that into a legitimate scary movie. You could watch that and not even catch that side of it, and it still be a really good scary movie. And the effects team on this movie absolutely killed it. The dead people are legitimately scary. Like some of
Yeah.
the people you see in the movie, and it's almost a shame that some of them they didn't show very long, because some of them are so scary. Like I almost wish they would have got an extra second or two. On
well, you
screen.
remember when we covered it, we had came across, one of the directors were saying that there is a version out there where they do show them for longer. And he was, like, well, we kind of debated back and forth which version we wanted to show. And they ended up going with the ones where it's quicker because it's kind of scarier. And that's probably a smart decision for somebody for their first time watching it. It's a really good idea to see that version. But then after you've seen it, let us see the other version now.
Yeah,
because they did a really, really fucking good job with that.
I mean, they probably spent 7 or 8 hours on some of these.
For like one or 2 seconds.
Yeah, for literally 1 or 2 seconds. And, I agree with you. First time seeing it, it's kind of scarier seeing it real quick. But now, I want my hands on the copy that showed them longer. Well, it's just really fucking cool.
I remember, when we got it on DVD, you almost want to watch the movie over and over again because you see more detail of them the more times you watch it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a really smart decision. But yeah, I wish that we could get our hands on the longer version now.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought another thing, the characters I felt were very authentic. That's one thing a lot of movies miss on. These characters felt like real people. They felt like
definitely
people you would know. The cinematography and the overall feel of the movie was fantastic. It did a really good job in certain moments of making you feel uncomfortable. And as I've mentioned on the podcast many times before, a good movie is a movie that makes you actually feel something, whether that's super uncomfortable, scared, anxious, whatever that is. If a movie can make you actually feel that, it's generally a really good movie. They, as movie makers, they did their job, and there's certain parts of this movie that are really, really uncomfortable. And I thought that was great.
Yep, great movie. So, number 5, my number 5. We are halfway through my list. My number 5 is Thanksgiving. And I never, ever thought that this movie would ever actually get made. And when I heard it was being made, I thought there's no fucking way it's going to be like the Grindhouse trailer. I think this movie is better if you are familiar or had just watched the trailer. Because what they do with this is they take this, because anybody that's a fan of either one of the Grindhouse movies, you're familiar with a lot of the fake trailers that's in it because they're all great. They're outrageous, but they're great. But what they did was they took this just outrageous trailer and they literally wrote a fucking movie around it. And then you think, like, I remember when I watched it, I said, there's no way that they're going to have some of the stuff that they have in the trailer, like the trampoline girl, like because in the trailer, she does a split and lands on the knife, and you're like, they're not going to put that in a movie. They damn near did.
They did, and they did it beautifully too. That's one of those scenes, and that particular scene that's like, you kind of feel it when you see it. You're like, oh, that hurts.
And then they had, where the turkey mascot's head gets cut off in the parade, and then they have, and then the one I really didn't think they were going to have was where he pulls the sheet off, and it's the woman that is baked and dressed like a turkey. And I'm like, dude, there's no way they're going to have a fucking movie with that in it. And they did. They made a fucking movie with that stuff in it, and they made a good movie with it in it.
Yeah, they pulled it off. I mean, her being stuffed and cooked on the dinner table, that's one of the most memorable scenes of the entire movie.
Oh, man. It's, yeah. If you have not seen this, just go to YouTube before you watch it and look up the Grindhouse Thanksgiving trailer. And then when you see this, you're going to be like, there's no way all this shit's in it. Or you're just going to be even more excited because you're about to see a whole movie with all this shit in it. It makes the movie really awesome. I'm so glad that so many people were excited and remembered that trailer, because I'm pretty sure Grindhouse is from like 2007. And I mean, it's only like a 2.5 minute long trailer in a movie from 2007. So I could see a lot of people not really remembering it all that much, but apparently people did remember it and they were excited, and this movie got fucking made, and it's good. It's a good movie. Like, the plot's not great, but they had to write the plot around something that they made as a joke.
Yeah, it's also, I mean, it's a slasher movie. You don't have to have in-depth, awesome plots for a good slasher movie. There's certain ingredients that you need in there, like a good killer, good practical effects, things like that, good kills, and it has that. And they were able to take this trailer that was put in there to kind of be
It's a
funny.
joke.
It's a joke. Yeah. And they were able to take that and literally write a story around it and it be a good movie. And that's impressive.
Yeah, I can't remember if it's a trailer on Planet Terror. I'm pretty sure it's on Planet Terror. Because I fucking love Death Proof. That is a phenomenal movie. I do. Planet Terror is okay. It's a little kind of crazy sometimes, but I remember when they announced this, that I remember the trailer, but I didn't remember all the details from it. So I went back and watched it, and I'm like, there's no this is going to be a movie that's similar to this trailer, but it's not going to be this. And they did it. My only complaint, I have two complaints about it. One, I think the final girl was kind of forgettable. I wasn't really a big fan of the final girl in the movie. She's all right, I guess, but I remember the first time I seen the movie, I was like, I couldn't pick her out of a lineup. She's just one of those. She's one of them.
She's no Nancy.
Yeah. And then I really wish that it would have kept the Grindhouse feel to it. But I get why they didn't do it, because not everybody's into that style. I would have loved it. I would have loved this movie even more. But yeah, it's amazing. Somebody gets cooked alive like a fucking turkey. That's all you need to know. That's it.
And she's a bitch too, so it just makes it even that much better.
Yeah, but that's Thanksgiving gets my number 5 spot. Number 4, Scream 6. After Scream 5, I did not have high expectations for 6. I'm not saying 5 was bad, but it wasn't great. And I will never, ever forgive them for killing my man Dewey. Never going to let that go.
Not just killing him, they did him wrong.
They did do him wrong.
I thought, not to get too far into that, but the whole like making him this loser that lives in a trailer, and it's kind of hinted that he's kind of an alcoholic. He's lost his wife, and then they kill him after doing that. He doesn't even get like a good redemption.
Yeah, you remember that thing where he was supposed to be an alcoholic originally, and David Arquette actually put his foot down and was like, no. And I can't believe they They did that. Like, I personally would rather have seen Dewey outlive the whole rest of the cast.
No fucking respect.
Nope.
No fucking respect for Dewey. And that is absurd.
My man, Dewey Riley. Dewey Riley.
Like,
That's sad.
Do you even scream, bro?
Yeah.
Do you even scream? You wrote that. You can't be a huge fan if you wrote that movie.
Yeah, but I don't hate 5. 5's okay. I could have did without it, but this movie, I like this movie. The plot, whatever, don't care. It's not bad. It's not great. And I'm not a huge fan of the ending, but it has a couple really awesome things going for it. The new mask was fucking awesome. I never thought that they would be able to change the Ghostface mask and everybody be cool with it. I thought, if before this movie, if I could have said, one of the major mistakes that you could make making a new Scream movie is changing the mask. And they did it and it worked. It was great. The whole entire old theater Ghostface murder museum, amazing. That is the crown jewel of that movie, in my opinion. The fact that you can watch those scenes and look at stuff in the background and know what movie it's from if you're a big fan, awesome. The old costumes on display, amazing. They mentioned all the previous killers, excellent. And Ghostface, in my opinion, is a fucking savage in this movie. He kills people with shotguns in public.
Fucking sawed off shotgun at that.
Yeah.
Good shit.
Yeah. And then I will say too, the New York setting was used very well. A lot of movies try to do, so-and-so goes to New York, and then it doesn't really seem like they're using the New York setting all that great. This one did a really good job, and it took place during fucking Halloween. We got a Ghostface killer during Halloween. Yeah, I really like this movie for all that stuff. I can look past the plot. I can look past the ending. And honestly, I'll say something controversial. I liked that Sidney Prescott wasn't in the movie.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I think it's time that we move on from the Sidney Prescott story. I know a lot of people don't want to hear it, but it doesn't make sense that Ghostface, fucking, what do we, 7 Ghostfaces in now?
Yeah, no,
they're trying to kill the same person. Let's just move on.
No franchise has ran with the same person for that long. Like the Andy Barclay story had to come to an end. You look the same thing with the Friday the 13th. The first 3 movies kind of matched together.
You're not going after Alex for 7 movies.
Yep. And it's definitely, I mean, it's just time, man. Like 3 movies in the same saga. That's kind of the limit, and they pushed that limit past that. They have 5 movies in the Sidney Prescott saga.
Yeah, she's in 5 of them.
Yeah, I think it was definitely, you don't have to kill her off. People don't want to see her die, whatever. You don't have to kill her off, but you can have a new saga with the same character.
Yeah. With this movie, because they included so much from all of the previous movies, if this was the last Scream movie we ever got, I'd be fine. I'd be okay with it. That I don't know where they're gonna go from here, because they busted out the original mask from the original murders. They had every murderer's fucking costume and mask. They had everything from all the crime scenes from all the movies before. I thought it was a good spot to be done. I don't know how they're going to top, what they did, but yeah, this is why Scream 6 lands pretty high up on my list, is because, yeah, I don't really, the characters are okay, the story's okay, but the stuff, it's almost like they paid homage to the whole entire franchise, and that's what I loved about it.
Agreed so much. That my part 4 is also Scream 6.
We gotta talk more about Scream.
And pretty much everything you just said was what I was gonna say.
Oh, I stole all your thunder.
Yeah, you did.
Uh-huh.
I went into this movie with extremely low expectations, and I was very relieved at what we got. You know my opinion on 5. You just said you don't care for 5. You know I even like it less than
I
that.
remember we went and seen 5, and then like 2 months later, I was like, "Yeah, you remember this from the Scream movie?" And you're like, "I don't remember it."
I blocked it out. It was so bad.
It's like we just seen
It
it.
was so bad, and it had like really like campy, like it was done for like the younger generation. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you know how I feel about that movie. So much that I blocked it out.
It wasn't very positive for you guys that don't know.
No, it's the worst one in the Scream series for me.
I will
Scream
agree.
5.
I will definitely agree with
I'm not
that.
gonna go into throwing jabs at it any more than I already have. It's the worst one. So going into this, and then I heard it was gonna be in New York. So I'm like, oh well, that's even more possibilities for them to make this fucking stupid. And they pulled it off extremely well.
Yeah.
You know, you think of the New York, you think of the Jason Goes to Manhattan, where, you know, only the last quarter of it actually takes place in New York. They actually pulled the Scream in New York off, and they pulled it off very well. There is some things about this movie that I don't care for in the writing, but having all the costumes from the other movies, having the fallen apart mask. You know, this is
it's phenomenal.
the first movie we've ever gotten where there was a different variation of the mask, other than, you know, Funhouse's slightly different molds. This was the first time, other than the clean white and black, that we've ever got, and it looked really cool. Well, it was fucking awesome looking.
This is really the first time we've seen something different since the Casey Becker mask. Remember that one is different.
Yeah.
It's the one that Wes Craven had made.
And that wasn't even meant to be different.
Yeah.
Like, that was literally just what they made before. They made that, and Wes Craven was like, nope, we got to strike a deal with Funhouse.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not the same.
And I really thought, you know, for so long, because I remember when 5 came out, they had a small spot in the trailer where they showed the chrome face, ghost face, and people were pissed. And I was like, you'll never be able to change that fucking mask.
Mm-mm.
And they did it. They successfully did it in this movie.
Well, I think what made it successful is they didn't necessarily change the mask. They aged it. Like, it was a mask that previous ghost faces wore. It was the same mask. It was just aged. And I thought they could have fucked that up in a lot of ways by making it look ridiculous. They didn't. I thought it looked really cool. Bringing back like the Ghostface Museum with all the different killers' costumes and shit. I thought there was no better way for them to pay homage to the franchise as a whole than that, and that is what gives this movie some extra points for me. There's definitely some things in the writing that I would have changed. Nothing major. There's nothing major that I'm like, oh my God, I fucking hate that. Other than everybody living. That's the only thing I hated about it.
That's most people's complaint, yeah.
Hated about it is everybody who should have died didn't die. You didn't kill off any major characters. I don't like that. I don't like when somebody gets stabbed and it's very obvious they should be dead and they just miraculously are able to live through it. Kind of gives this this thing that kind of like anything's possible. Like, you never know. Is Dewey going to be alive in the next one? He would never actually died. He ended up living. You know, I don't like that. But other than that, everything else about this movie I thought was great. I absolutely loved the brutality of Ghostface in this movie. The kills, the practical effects were great. The feel of the movie was great. Definitely one of the best movies to come out this year.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of the kills, like, there is a scene where a guy opens a refrigerator and there's a fucking head in there. There is another scene where they, like, run through a bathroom when he's like attacking them all in an apartment, and there's like in the background a guy in a fucking bathtub with fucking blood and shit. Like, I mean, he's like almost dismembered. There's just so many. There are just so many like brutal things in this movie that we've never seen in a Ghostface movie. So
If they would have killed Gale Weathers, this would probably be higher up on my list. This would be in the top 3 if they would have just killed Gale Weathers. But of course, she gets almost killed for the 50th time, and but it's a great movie.
I liked
Definitely
it.
one of the better ones this year. So moving on from that, my number 3, which might be a little surprising to you, my number 3 was Hell House Origins.
Oh man, you threw that way up there.
Yes, I did. I love found footage movie, and this was a huge surprise for me because I had seen the other Hell Houses, and they've never even come close to what this one did for me. Found footage has to get so many things right for it to be really successful. One of them being the characters. The characters have to be very authentic.
I thought they were too. Yeah.
Yes, they were. Like, you look at the best found footage movie ever made, The Blair Witch Project. They were as authentic as they could be. Mm-hmm. They were really living these situations out. So you got to have authentic characters, and whoever does your cinematography and sets up your shots, it has to be done perfect because it has to be believable. It has to be believable that certain things got in the shot. You have to know what to leave out of the shot. It has to feel real. And when you get those things done right, as if you were watching a real video, and they nailed that. And with that said, this movie's characters, like with the clowns and the girl, one of the family members who had died, it's actually terrifying. It's one of the scariest scenes in movies that I've actually seen in probably, a couple of years. I thought it's rare at this point in my life that I watch a movie and it really, really does put me on the edge of my seat. And this was one of them. The scenes with the clowns, like where...
Oh, they're creepy.
Where you're looking at them and it almost looks like they're moving.
I originally thought, like, are them people just standing really still?
It looks like that.
Yeah.
Like, they do it so good. You're like, your brain starts playing tricks on itself. Like, I think I just seen that slightly move, but did I? And the build up in this, I thought was done masterfully. It's like I said, it's one of the few movies that I've seen as of recent, found footage movies that I've seen as of recent that was legitimately horrifying and put me on the edge of my seat. And I would consider this, if you're a found footage fan, this is an absolute must watch for you.
Speaking on the characters, one thing I really liked about them was some of these characters were like, we should get the fuck out of here kind of as soon as things got creepy. And, that doesn't happen a lot with found footage movies or ghost movies. You actually have more realistic characters that's trying to convince the other people, fuck this, we should just leave. And then a little bit later on, you see the two characters finally are like, you know what, fuck it, we're going to walk out of here. If like we can't get our car to start, we can't get a hold of anybody, fuck it, we'll just walk. And I feel like they really do seem like real people with their decision making. Like, they're all different, they can't all agree. Only one of them really, really, really wants to kind of give up everything to be there. The rest of them are just really there in support. Once things go too far, they finally can convince the other one to leave. I just thought that it wasn't one of those movies where you're kind of screaming at the characters of like, well, if I was in this situation, I'd fucking have left by now, or I would have tried to get that other person to leave by now.
Yeah, it's extremely authentic.
Yeah.
And I love that. Like I said, you look at the original Blair Witch, they try to get the fuck out of there very early on, and everything they try doesn't work. Like, they're stuck. And it's like night 2 in this movie, and they go to leave. they're like, all right, night 2, shit's gotten too crazy. Let's fucking leave. And then the car doesn't work. And then they start walking and they get, basically stalked by this group of people who run them back into the house. And they try everything that you would try as an audience member if you were in this situation. They actually try it. And it also creates turmoil within the group. And there's always going to be that. There's going to be people who try to blow it off at first and people who's like, let's get the fuck out of here. And it was very authentic characters. And like I said, the cinematography that has to be done right in found footage movies, I thought they nailed in this movie. Everything. There's no scenes that I see that I'm like, that just didn't make sense. Like, why would that be on video? Like, they have a reason. They're doing this documentary thing. They have a reason of why they're supposed to be filming everything, and it all makes sense.
Yeah, man, you put that one up. That was your number 3.
That was my number 3.
So my number 3 is When Evil Lurks. Wow, what a fucking movie this was. Like, this was the sleeper hit that no one saw coming. In this movie, if you haven't seen it, it's fucking savage. Like, it did things that most movies are scared to do. A child gets tore up and dragged away by a dog. A woman chops herself in the face with an axe. And a zombie mom eats her fucking son's brains. Like, you could go on and on with how, like, fucked up this movie is. I mean, this film had some balls. And it used practical effects, like really, really good practical effects. And it had like a really unique plot. It had like the whole like evil possession thing, like spreading like a virus, and there are like protocols that you need to follow to contain it. And at one point, like it had like almost taken over the world, and then it was almost like an evil Ebola. And that is such a unique idea.
I thought it was extremely original.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's a fucking home run movie. And it has a like icing on the cake. It has a fucking great ending.
Yeah.
It has like a fucking savage ending. The only complaint I ever seen people complain about with this movie was basically like, well, all these events take place because of the stupidity of the main characters. But you got to remember, like, if you look at something like COVID, there are people out there that do make bad choices when something is like this is going on. Like, that's not to sit and say, well, these characters aren't realistic because they're making bad decisions. People make bad decisions every fucking day.
Well, hindsight's always 20/20.
Yeah.
Too. You don't really know that something's that bad of a decision until after you've made it. If you knew it was before you made the decision, you probably would have thought differently.
Yeah, I remember when, I think I even talked about it on the show where I turned it on. I mean, I seen it like the day after it came out on, I think on Shudder, and I had seen like 2 or 3 posts about it, and I was like, well, I'm not even going to look into the movie. I'm just going to watch it. And I watched it, and I didn't know the whole thing was in Spanish. And, so I had to, like 5 minutes in, I realized it was going to be in Spanish, so I had to go back and then turn the subtitles on. But I was so worried that this was going to turn a lot of people off because a lot of people don't want to read subtitles the whole movie. And I was like, man, I really hope that people don't sleep on this movie because they don't want to read for, an hour and a half or so. And thankfully, they didn't. Like, people fucking watched this movie. Like, it exploded after that.
Yeah, this came out of nowhere.
Oh, for sure.
This was like, you remember in Jackass, one of the movies where they're walking through the hall and they build the giant hand that swings and smacks the fuck out of everybody? Mm-hmm. That was what this movie did. Like, nobody's seen it coming, and it absolutely blew up. I was one of those people who put this movie off because it was just in Spanish and I had to read the whole thing. Not because I mind reading the movie, but because I have kids, and this is one of those movies, if you have kids, you got to read the whole thing. You can't get distracted or get up and do something for a second and listen, because you got to be reading it the whole time. And I wish that I would have watched it even sooner than I did because it was that good. I think I put it off for like a week.
Yeah,
It
it was
was like a
something like
week or
that.
two.
Because I remember I would come in like every day and like, have you watched it yet? Because like I
No.
want to talk about it. I want to talk about it. And you finally watched it. Now I remember you guys were watching it, and I walked in there and I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna watch. You'd already watched half of it. I'm like, I'm just gonna watch half of it again.
Yeah, I wish that they would have English dubbed it because there's some shows out there that are English dubbed that are so good you forget that they're not in English. I would love to see an English version of this movie, but I don't think there's any way that they could ever touch the original. So I wouldn't want to see them make like a US version of it just because it's such a good movie. I don't think they could touch it.
Well, I'll stop talking about it right there because I'm sure it's gonna pop up again here very soon.
Oh,
So.
I actually left it off my list.
Oh well.
I did
Okay.
English only movies.
All right. So we'll move on to my number 2. My number 2 is Talk to Me. This is a unique spin on a possession movie. I've said it many times. I'm not a fan of possession movies. I feel like it's so hard to touch The Exorcist, which is an amazing, amazing film, and it does so much stuff so well. And I feel like almost every possession movie just tries to kind of replicate it, and it misses the mark. And I feel like I'm watching the same movie over and over again. This is a possession movie that does its own thing, and I think that that's so rare nowadays. One of the things I really like is we mentioned it earlier, that the characters are realistic, and you have this unique spin on the story. I could totally see a 17-year-old me like going to one of these parties and would have absolutely grabbed that fucking hand. I know it. I know I would have did it. I can see myself in that group.
Because you did drugs. That's how you know it. We've all been there.
Yeah, and I even though it's geared more towards the younger generation, I think every generation's the one thing that remains the same no matter how generations change or technology changes is we're all kind of with that group of friends. We all want to be cool. We all want to sneak out and go to the parties, and we all want to be adventurous when we're younger, and that never changes. So I felt like I could relate to the characters really well, and I would have been right in the thick of it with them. Maybe not their exact situation, but I'd have been at that fucking party.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned when I had it on my list that the characters are very authentic. One thing, because it is the younger generation, and one thing I hate with a lot of movies, I feel like Scream 5 did this. I feel like a lot of the movies geared towards the younger generation, they oversell it. Like they make they oversell it so much. It's like they take these tropes that are known with the younger generation and things like social media and stuff, and they just blow it out of proportion, and they make it such a big part of the story where it doesn't feel genuine. Although these characters are young and there is the social media presence in the people video,
It's
and
really on the
stuff,
beginning.
it feels real though. Like it still feels like real characters. Like they're not overwritten to be a certain way. And in that way it's just very authentic to me.
Well, all that stuff is, I love all that stuff about the movie, and I love how unique it is, but that's not the reason that it hit my number 2 spot. The reason that it is so high up on my list is because this is one of those movies that you can watch multiple fucking times and keep picking up stuff. And those are my favorite movies.
Those are good.
And it also has one of those endings where you can debate with somebody about the ending, and there's no like guarantee that either person is right. And you will watch the movie multiple times to try to prove that your version is right. And then you even start to see the other person or other people's theories, and you can start seeing why they think that. Like, it's done. The story's done so well that I now can't even say definitively what I believe happened.
Oh yeah, I remember we debated the ending.
Yeah,
and
there's
for
an
a
episode
while,
about it.
and then you came in and was like, "I think you're right."
Well, I
Think you're
remember
right.
saying I think you're right about this part of it. Like, I still have not given up the fact that I think she pushed her friend out in traffic. I haven't given that part up, but I remember I did agree with what you were saying about kind of the lead up to it or something. But yeah, this is one of those movies that you watch it the first time, I guarantee you didn't catch everything. You got to watch it a second time, and then you probably didn't catch everything then. Like, I've seen the movie 3 or 4 times, and I feel like I got a pretty good handle on it now. But I love the movies that are like that. That is why it hit my number 2.
Yeah, it's a fantastic movie. Then you take it how it is. It's a great movie, and then whenever you realize that it's the whole thing is written to kind of parallel, what it's like for kids and drug addictions and people to fall down that hole, and how it can be, a recreational thing for some people.
For most people, yeah.
And then it, ruins somebody else's life, and you see that downward spiral that somebody goes through. And I thought that they were able to mirror the idea of addiction and use the hand as a metaphor for that, but write it in a movie that was scary. Like, if you told me that idea, I'd be like, yeah, you could probably make an all right movie, but how scary is it going to be? They were able to do that and make a really cool, really scary, really original movie. Props to them for that.
Yeah.
And it's A24. So my number 2, it's going to be When Evil Lurks.
It's an alright movie.
Yeah, it's an alright movie.
The effects are kind of weak.
Yeah. Like we were saying, we've already talked about a lot of what I put down here, but like we were saying, this movie completely came out of nowhere. I will say that I love about this movie how we are dropped in the middle of these characters' lives. We have no build up. We don't have anything that kind of explains what's going on. We don't have like a beginning intro scene that kind of gives us an idea of where we're at. You're literally dropped in the story, and you learn kind of what's going on throughout the story.
Yeah.
Like, you have no idea in the beginning what they're even talking about.
Yeah, it has this whole backstory that they do fill you in a little bit later on, but there's way more to that story than what we get.
Yep. Yeah, you're dropped into the middle of the story, and you have absolutely no fucking clue what's going on. And as you continue to get through the story, they do a really good job of kind of going over what happened, and I thought it was a really good original idea. Thought it was something that was a mix of things that have been done, but something that had never been done like that.
Yeah, one of the cool things they did is, within the first, 5 minutes or so, they go into the woods and they find this guy torn in half, and he has all this equipment. And I remember looking at that equipment and being like, what the fuck is that? And you spend so much of the movie, like, I guess you eventually kind of forget about it, but if you don't, you'll spend a lot of the movie remembering that and being like, how does that shit tie into what's going on? You don't really understand until almost the end of the movie, when that lady starts setting the shit up, which we still don't know what that shit exactly does.
Yeah.
Like, we never actually see how this device works. And
yeah, there's like a special way to kill them, and you got to do it a certain way.
And we never see it.
Yeah, or you'll like kill yourself immediately. You'll be possessed, and you literally, and until the end, when they get with that lady, you have no idea what the fuck they're talking about.
Yeah, I totally don't have a problem. I know a lot that probably annoys a lot of people, but I think that that's really good storytelling when I'm spending a lot of time piecing together the story myself based off of, little clues. It makes it more realistic because if you did just show up to that scene and people are talking, that's how people talk in real life. And there's not going to be somebody that's going to walk up and fill you in on everything right then and there. That's
Yeah.
really good. That's really realistic storytelling.
Then they're talking about like the infected, and so you instantly think, okay, this is a zombie movie. And then they get to the house and they show the guy who is infected for the first time, and it is like when you see that, you're instantly back to, oh my god, what the fuck is going on? Like
Yeah.
when they first show that guy on the bed, it is like a jaw dropping moment. Like you don't expect to see what you see. Thought that was, the whole way that they set this movie up, it was very carefully done, and I thought it was masterfully done. The practical effects crew deserves an award for this movie. There's so many different parts of this movie that I thought the effects were extremely good. And like the girl, when the dog snatches her up, like you don't see that shit coming.
Oh no, that's fucking mind blowing.
And they do it so good. Like they do it really good. And I think what I love the most about this movie is they go places that other movies wouldn't go.
Because they're trying to say that this is truly evil. This is evil itself. And a lot of movies try to play that off, and it's like, okay, this really does seem like evil.
Yeah.
Everything that this thing does is fucking evil.
And nobody's like, kids aren't off limits.
Nope.
Like none of that.
Nothing's
like,
off
kids
limits.
Getting its fucking brains eaten. Little girls getting like literally ragdolled by adult. Like they go places that other movies kind of draw the line at. And they did it, and it's there's certain parts of this movie that has the shock factor that, because you're not used to, as an audience, movies going that far, and when you see it, you're like, holy shit. And those things combined with the overall feel, this movie's got a really like dark tone, dark feel to it. It's undoubtedly for me the second best movie of the year, one of the better movies that's come out in the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And with that said, my number one, which I assume is probably going to be your number one,
Probably
too.
going to be the same. So we're going to get to just talk about this whole entire movie here.
Yeah, I don't think you could miss this on the top 10. Evil Dead Rise.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and say, yeah, my number one is Evil Dead Rise. So we'll go ahead and have a conversation about it at the same time.
Yeah, so you probably remember when I first heard that they were doing an Evil Dead in the middle of the city, I was like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, I remember you were not very excited about it.
I was not happy. There's so many ways that they could have fucked this movie up and so little room to get it right. And they absolutely killed it. They didn't overcomplicate the story. The acting was great. The cinematography was great. The practical effects were amazing. Most importantly, they maintained the feel of an Evil Dead movie. Like, that was what I was most worried about, is how are you going to get that Evil Dead, like, cabin in the woods, evils, pure evil taking people over, and how do you get that same feel in the middle of an apartment building in a city? And they pulled it off, and I was extremely impressed. Overall, undoubtedly for me, the best movie of the year, and honestly one of the best in the Evil Dead franchise. I'm not gonna put it over the original Evil Dead, but I think it stands right up there with the remake, undoubtedly.
Yeah, I mean, I know that there are people that are screaming through their speakers at us right now, but I don't think either one of us are Evil Dead mega fans. I love the first one. It's one of the first horror movies I actually owned as a kid. The second one is good, but I'll be honest, and I love the 2013 remake. I I like my Evil Deads without the comedy. I'm not a big fan of the comedy that they put in there.
Agree, a
I
hundred,
like
hundred
just be I
percent.
like it just to be horror. That's how I like my Evil Deads, just straight fucking horror. And I know that that's probably not the majority of Evil Dead fans.
No,
Um, and yeah, we may be on the outskirts of Evil Dead fandom, but you know, the first one, the remake, this one, like these are how I like my Evil Deads, just fucking fucked up, violent, deadites doing fucked up shit. Like that is how I like my movies. This movie is I remember you weren't excited about The Apartment, but I was. I remember saying, we've done The Woods a few times now, and I was really excited to see what deadites were going to be like in an apartment building. And they exceeded my expectations for what happened.
I thought the feel was gonna be bad. I'm like, how are you gonna get the Necronomicon in an apartment building? Thought they wrote that in really well. You know, I'm with you 100%. I know there's a ton of the Ash fans and the Ash versus Evil Dead and the comedy ones. The original Evil Dead is one of my favorite classic horror movies. You owned it when I was a kid. I remember watching it. It scared the shit out of me. It will forever hold a special place in my heart. That's how I like my Evil Dead. Like, I don't like the comedy aspect of it that they add in the later movies. And this didn't have it. This was straight up horror. And I thought they did an amazing job to be able to make the story make sense, maintain that feel, and still have a kick-ass fucking Evil Dead movie. And they pulled it off.
Yeah, one thing about this movie too is I actually really liked all the characters in the movie, to the point where I would feel a little bad about when they got possessed, especially the mom. The mom was a good character. Like, she was a single parent. Her husband fucked her over. Her sister, when she needed her sister was kind of so entrenched in her own life, and she's really just trying to raise her kids, and she becomes the first one to get possessed. And in this movie, there's no redemption. There's no like, well, they saved her, and in the end, like, none of these people in this movie have a good ending. It is a very fucked up situation, and that is what Evil Dead should be.
Absolutely.
And the effects and the kills in this are awesome. Like, we get somebody who chews on a fucking light bulb. We get a cheese grater to the leg. We get an elevator full of blood.
Yeah, the amount of blood they went through in this movie was great.
Yeah,
I loved it.
there's a wood chipper.
And the wood chipper scene isn't done weak either.
No.
Like, it's real, like chunks of body parts and shit flying out, like guts and stuff. I thought all the gory scenes, even the chewing on glass, they did a really good job of those scenes of making you feel really uneasy and uncomfortable, and amping it up at certain points when they really needed to, like with the wood chipper scene. Yeah, I was 100% wrong. I'll admit that. I had I went into the movie theaters with very low expectations, and maybe that's why I rank it as high as I do, because
Yeah, that's always
it's always
great.
better to go in with low expectations and it be a good movie than to go in with high expectations and it be a bad movie. But yeah, I was completely happy with the way this came out.
Yeah, I was super excited when I seen it was coming out. It didn't disappoint me. I had a ton of fun watching it. That is like I said, that's how I designed my list. That is why I picked this movie for number one, is because I had so much fun. Like, I've seen this movie at least 3 times this year, and there is not a single time where it's gotten old yet. This was hands down my favorite, most fun movie of the year. uh, yeah, it was nothing that topped it. You know, there was movies that I had a lot of fun watching or I really enjoyed, but I really, really loved this movie, and I think personally this was the best movie of the whole entire year.
All hail Evil Dead Rise.
Yeah, so those are our top 10 picks of the year. We're gonna do a little bit of honorable mentions. So my honorable mentions is I had Cobweb up there. It was originally on my list for a while and then eventually got knocked off, but I think on my extended list it fell at number 11. Um, I did go also with Insidious: The Red Door, a good movie. I'm not a big Insidious fan, but I can see that if you are, you probably love this movie. Like the fact that it brought back that original cast and kind of just picked right up from where those other movies left off. And then the thing that I thought was really cool was after the events of the first and second one, I believe, it showed that the family did not have like that happily ever after ending. And that is the reason why I gave it an honorable mention was it really showed that this fucked up event happened to this family and it wasn't okay afterwards. You know, it fucked that family up for probably ever.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree 100%. That was one of the movies I was going to mention specifically for that reason.
Yeah.
Is that it has this, like, there's not that happily ever after. It's an extremely grim, like, after the events of the first and second movie, you find out for this family, everything went to shit.
Yep. And that makes a really cool story dynamic, I think.
It's realistic.
Mm.
You know, it's not fake movie bullshit. Like, it's realistic.
And my last honorable mention is The Fall of the House of Usher, which is amazing. I didn't include we didn't include stuff like this on our top 10 list because an hour and a half, 2 hour movie can't really compete with 10 hours. You know, you can do a lot more with 10 hours than you can anything else. But this movie is a tight, well written story. The actors nailed it. The cinematography is amazing. The color palette, the effects, the sound, like everything is on point. I was expecting a good quality miniseries from Mike Flanagan, and he exceeded my expectations with this.
Yeah, that the Fall of the House of Usher is what I feel is the the best horror show that has come out since Midnight Mass. There's been some good ones since then.
Yeah, From has done a really well job.
Everything Mike Flanagan's done and his entire Netflix run has been really good. There's been a bunch of other great shows that's come out since then, but I don't think anything has come close to that level of perfection that Midnight Mass did for me until this.
Yeah, but it's fantastic. Knocked it out of the park, especially for being our last Netflix miniseries from Mike Flanagan, and he really did a fantastic job.
So for my honorable mentions, I was gonna throw out Insidious for those very same reasons. VHS 85. I know we already talked about that a bit. That was one of your picks. I thought it was the best VHS that's come out in a long time. And I was really happy to see them return to some success. Another one, No One Will Save You. I know that is a movie that you didn't care for because it didn't have a lot of dialogue in it. But I thought for a alien, kind of like a farmhouse in the middle of nowhere, and starting to get harassed by aliens, there was some really, really, really good high tension moments in that show or in that movie. And I thought it was good. I thought it played that off really good. I thought even the aliens that they had were really creepy, really good. We didn't get a whole lot of extraterrestrial alien movies this year, and this is one that I think was done really well. I hated some things that they did at the end as far as the story goes, which is why it didn't rank on my list or get a higher rating. But overall, the feel of it, I thought the feel of the movie was really good, and it was really well done. And then obviously the fall of the House of Usher. But, that's, if we were ranking that with movies, that would probably take the number one spot. That show was great.
Well, those are our picks for 2023. If any of your favorite movies did not make this list, it is not a knock on them. It's not us saying that they were bad or we didn't like them. These are just the movies that we had the most fun watching and, we rated really well. It's just kind of our cup of tea. And speaking of not our cup of tea, we got the I Just Didn't Get the Hype Award. My pick for it was Megan. Um, the AI girl doll who gets way too clingy and obsessive and starts murdering people. I'm not going to say the movie's bad. It's not bad. It's nothing new, I guess. I feel like just a couple years ago, we got like the same movie with the Child's Play remake. I felt like it was that same movie, but it's, was a girl doll and dressed up in outfits and she dances before she kills people and can like low key throw shade with the best of them, but I thought it was a predictable movie. And not everything needs to be groundbreaking, but it needs to be fun, and it was a fun movie, but for me it wasn't that fun. Like I just didn't get the hype of why people liked it so much. So that's my pick. I'm going with Megan.
Well, I had two movies that I was back and forth on. The first one being The Exorcist Believer, and the reason I went back and forth is because I've seen a lot of people down this movie too. So this is supposed to be I didn't get the hype. A lot of people hated this movie, but the other half of it hyped it. It's like you either loved or hated this movie. And based off of the box office, it made a fuck ton of money. So there was obviously some hype there. And I thought, and I predicted this before the movie came out from the time I seen the first trailer, but they didn't run with any of the original themes from the original Exorcist. They kind of made it just like every Catholic possession movie that comes out now.
Yep.
And it was just, it was much of the same of stuff that's already been done. Shit tons of CGI body contortions and really bad sound, using effects over the voices and stuff. It was just awful. However, because a lot of people felt the same way, and this was I didn't get the hype award, my pick ultimately ended up being Megan for the same reason. And I picked it because on a lot of the list that I read of top 10 movies,
it's up there.
Megan was not only on most of them, it was up there in the top 5 movies on quite a few of them that I looked at.
I don't get it.
I don't understand it either. If you're going to put it in your top 10, if you like the movie, that's cool. If that's your thing, it's your thing. But I did not think that there wasn't 5 movies that came out this year that were obviously better than that, even if that is your thing.
I felt like I rolled my eyes one too many times throughout that movie for it to hit my top 10.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
It didn't, honestly, it didn't come anywhere near, because I did my list based off of ratings. So I rated every movie that I watched this year, and there was a lot of them that came out this year, and it didn't even come close to my top 10.
All right. Well, next we're going to talk about our plans for 2024. So we have massively upgraded everything for the show. We got new mixers. We got really nice quality microphones. We got new headphones. We literally upgraded everything about $1,100 worth. Hopefully you can tell because, this episode, the next episode, we did on all the new equipment. So we are definitely looking forward to better production quality this year. We are also going to be doing the Patreon where we can try out some other ideas, and we got a couple series that we've always wanted to do them, and now we're going to start kind of trickling them out there. So we got what I call Tales from the Script series, where we are going to do a Tales from the Crypt episodes. We're going to start with season 1. We're going to go from there. And it's pretty much, we'll watch an episode and we're going to kind of talk a little bit about the plot and kind of talk about a lot of the funny shit and a lot of the effects and stuff that we're going to go through. It won't be like as thorough as kind of we do our movies, because I don't think there's a ton of information per episode, but I think it's just going to be something fun. And I think we're going to come across a lot of really funny shit in those older, cheap made horror shows. And I have always loved Tales from the Crypt. It's kind of one of our things that got us really into horror when we were younger was Tales from the Crypt. So that's going to be fun. And we have a fuck ton of Tales from the Crypt episodes to go through. So that's something that we were going to be able to do for a long time.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of comedy.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of rough shit in those.
There's a lot of really good classic episodes, too, of Tales from the Crypt.
Definitely.
And I can't wait to get into them. It's something we can do that's not going to throw off our normal schedule. We're putting something out and giving a full movie every week. It's, quick 30-minute episodes we can throw in. I think they're going to be a lot of fun and a lot of comedy.
Yep. I'm looking forward to them because I love Tales from the Crypt. And then we have our remake versus original, where we are going to compare two films. We're going to talk about the similarities, the differences, the budgets, the effects, and pretty much decide which one we thought was better. We have a lot of remakes nowadays, so let's, we want to kind of do it with a clean slate of, is this remake better or as good as the original? A lot of times we say no, but you really got to watch a remake, not judging it because you really like the original. Like, we want to really compare these two movies. Also, we got the Is It That Bad series, where we're going to take kind of genuinely disliked horror films, like films that everyone hates, and we're going to watch it pretty much with a clean slate and figure out if it's really that bad of a movie. Some good examples is, the Nightmare on Elm Street 2. Everyone hates that movie. Well, not everyone. A lot of people hate that movie, and it's because it doesn't go with the rest of the Nightmare on Elm Streets. It's so different. But let's sit down and watch it if it was a standalone movie, and we'll decide, does it really deserve the hate that it gets?
We're gonna take the Nickelbacks of the horror movie world.
That's a good.
We're gonna break them down.
Yeah, we're also gonna post our like our after shows for episodes where we want to talk a little more about a certain movie. We won't do one for every episode we do, but there are some movies where we kind of cut the mics off and we'll end up talking about that movie for another hour or 30 minutes or something. And then there's also like stuff that I don't get the chance to put in the other episodes because we've already made it 2 hours long. So we'll also throw those kind of episodes in there too. And then we're also kind of playing around with the ideas of maybe favorite kills in franchises or comparing some of our favorite horror characters. And then maybe doing like some deep dives on some of our favorite like effects guys, writers, and some of our favorite directors. So that's pretty much what we are planning to do in 2024. We hope you guys will be joining us. We are very excited for the year to come. We thank you guys for checking out our special end of the year episode. Next week, we will be returning to our regular one movie per week episodes, and we hope to see you there.
Have a kick-ass beginning to the best year of your life.
Hopefully this is it.
Hopefully it's not a horror movie.
No.
Hopefully they don't make a movie about it and we're covering it in 2 years.
Yep.